Okay, good morning. This week's quota is Siman Kuf Gimel. Some housekeeping mentioned before. There's 2 more weeks of learning. Sorry, after this is two more weeks. And during those 2 weeks, we're basically going to finish off the entire rest of Tarovis. I'm looking at the schedule here. So there's, like next week, for example, there's a lot of Simanim we're doing, most of which are very small Simanim, and some of which are not so practical nowadays, but they're shorter Simanim. Kuf Dalet, Kuf Vav, Kuf Zayin, Kuf Ches, 4 Simanim next week. Week after that, 2 Simanim, Kuf Tes, Kuf Yud, and then a 3-week break over Shavuos, in which you can do your test, Hazara and test. After that is after Shavuos, a week and a half after Shavuos, 3 weeks of learning, and then test, and then it's already done. So we're really at the home stretch.
Hold on one second. We have two
2 more weeks of learning,
of learning Tarabus.
Tarovis,
Then we have 3 week
3-week
Shavuos.
break, Hazara test over
We're doing a
Shavuos,
test for the Shavuos.
week and a half before Shavuos, week and a half after.
Okay.
And then after that is Melicha within the span of 3 weeks, which is short, easy, and not basically the hard part's done. Everything's gonna be easier from now. That's the point. There actually is one siman here that's really, really hard, but only because there's like an extended long shach, which we're not going to get into. So this whole pilpul on Svexvaker, which
That's what we spoke about, I think, yesterday. But what I asked you yesterday, there's a whole shot about the vegetables in the pot.
yeah, it's the whole long. He has a whole pilpul on what counts as Svexvaker, where the T-Svek is coming from, whatever. We're not going to be getting into that. So everything is much easier going forward. Malicha is fairly easy, and because it's not practical in your kitchen, because none of us are going through the process of salting, it's only relevant to the rest of the subject in that, as we already learned, dam is already a tarovus. Meat is kosher, dam is in it, and it's a question of extraction. So just similarly linked subject, but not because be'etzim it's relevant to your kitchen. None of us are salting unless you're becoming a mashgiach one day. It's not really relevant to your kitchen. So we're really at the home stretch.
So does the
Really?
book that you use for
There's a third book, Malicha. You should have a third one.
Does the book that we used for inside, like when you have the extra book?
The visualizations, yeah.
No, you use the book to
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
halachas with a Maisa sort of, and does it have things on Litha?
It does. I haven't read through it yet, but it does, yeah. Okay, so that's what's coming forward. So it's Baruch Hashem, very exciting, and the marks I'm receiving from Lemanya will do really good, Baruch Hashem.
What's the average of the class? Do you know? Like, have you calculated the average? I think I asked you that.
I haven't calculated it, but if I have to go by memory, it's somewhere near 80. The average of the class is somewhere near 80. We have to go 84, maybe something there. Between 80 and 85, if I have to guess, based on the numbers I saw. Okay.
The third test is going to be like the second one where you choose like the ones you want to
Yeah.
like a best like a
Was that better than the first one?
Weren't they both like that?
no.
In the first one, if you answered 20, they just took the first 8 and marked it, whatever the number was. And the second one, I switched it that they would, that you can choose what you want to answer, but they will take the best of. I think that's a little better. I think it's a little more fair.
So on the second test,
And that way, now you can use the test as a chazara and put all the answers out, and it won't ruin your mark because they'll mark you based on the best of the. That's what I did in the second one. I think that was a little better.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with that the next round too. They're really leaving it up to me to decide, so I can decide with you here how it works best for everybody. Really, the test is a good chazara, really, more than anything else. It's a good chazara. When you're forced to go through all the details again and write it down. So if you have an incentive to write all the answers, then you have an incentive to do a full chazara, and that's really the best. Okay, so Kuf Gimel. Sim Kuf Gimel is a subject that we've learned many times already, as is with we've been learning already with all of this Hilchas Hisser Veheter. It's all principle building. It's a bunch of principles that intersect with each other and knowing how to apply the principles when. So when a siman is talking about some other principle, it's going to rely on some other principle too, right? So if it's going to talk about non-kosher or milk falling into a meat pot, it's going to have to ask you how old is the pot, even though it never spent time to explain to you what the principle of an old pot is. The principle is always if they're set.
For the taste, right?
Right, but is it Taam L'Fgam or not?
Okay.
Right? So I never explained to you what Taam L'Fgam is, but because it's talking about using the wrong pot, that has to include, the question was, if it's Taam L'Fgam. right? That's how all these principles intersect. So every time it's explaining a principle to you, it's going to bring from other principles, even though you haven't learned about them yet, right? And then, like in this case, we're now going to unpack the Taam L'Fgam, what that means, where it comes from, and how it's applied. And a lot of it, or a certain chunk of it, you already know because you've been using this principle in other circumstances, right? Which is really going to be only Sif. The primary thing we've been relying on the whole time is Sif Hey. In Sif Hey, it says any pot which is older than 24 hours is Taam L'Fgam, is a negative flavor. Right? But there are principles that lead up to that bring us there, which is going to be what the Siman is all about. So let's go back to the beginning of what Taam L'Fgam is. So the source comes from the Gemara. The Gemara, actually, it's machlokes in the Gemara if Taam L'Fgam is Asr or Mutter. It's actually machlokes in the Gemara. Obviously, you already know that we follow the opinion which says Taam L'Fgam is Mutter. We know that already, obviously. We've been relying on that heter many times. The Shulchan Aruch would be very different if we concluded that Taam L'Fgam was Asr. You would not have any of the heterim of the pot is too old, right? Which that would be a serious thing. So we know that already. Now, what's the source for that? The source is rather deceptively simple. The Torah says that when you have an avela, don't eat an avela, which means an animal that wasn't shechted properly. Give it to the resident alien, the non-Jew, who legally lives amongst you. Right? There's a halachic process of immigration by which a non-Jew can live in the land of Israel even without becoming Jewish. Ger Toshav. Yeah. So give it to him. Right. Which means it's a nevela. It's edible. If it's not edible, it isn't even a nevela, because a nevela is that which you would give to the non-Jew. If you cannot give it to the non-Jew, it's not even considered a nevela because it isn't edible. Okay. So from that perspective, how would you define Taam L'Fgam? How bad does the flavor have to be?
You wouldn't give it. In that case, it'd be
It's such a degree that it's inedible.
well, there'd be two levels, right? Because one is you wouldn't give it to someone, and then an edible is another would be another like level more than that.
Okay, I hear you. But let's put it this way: if it's a negative flavor, but I would still eat it anyway. It's not that bad.
Like a burnt flavor, let's say, something that's close to a crisp. And like part of it is completely burnt and the other part is not so burnt.
Something like that, or it's a little bit like you're drinking wine, yeah. So sometimes you make kiddush and you drink, oh my gosh, you can't even finish the cup.
Right. Are you allowed to finish?
And other times it's okay, it was a little off the wine. I would not put myself a second glass, but it's not as if like you could still drink it, right? It's actually a shiloh if you're going to the kiddush or not.
That's right.
But that's another thing, right? Because it has to be something that you enjoy.
Right.
But in here, because the source is the Torah says give the nevela to a goy, which means the Torah assumes the nevela is edible by the goy. So what would define something as negative flavor to such a degree that I can't even give it to the guy? It's so inedible, right? Which would mean, if you stopped here, that would mean that your 24-hour old keli, maybe then flavor it's giving off is negative, but not to the degree that's inedible. Because why is it not inedible? Why is it inedible? If you don't wash your pot, and then you cook something else in there 24 hours later, the food is so inedible.
We learned originally that
Even maybe the flavor it absorbed isn't the positive one. It's not enhancing the flavor, but it's so inedible. Can't say that. That's a pot that you would happily give to your neighbor. Right. So if the source of Taam L'Fgam is the Torah saying that nevela is only that which you can give to somebody else, it means the only time to make it not nevela if it's so inedible that you can't even give it to your neighbor. It's a very extreme version of Taam L'Fgam, which of course we already know from our principles is not the case. Clear on this? We clear on the conundrum, on the problem here? On the one hand, the Gemara is telling us that if you're of the view Taam L'Fgam mutter, if it's not the Gemara is the one that come up with this idea that if it's over 24 hours, it's okay. Right? So on the one hand, the Gemara is telling us if it's over 24 hours, because we paskin Taam L'Fgam mutter, no problem. And the same Gemara tells you know where Taam L'Fgam comes from. because it's givable to the neighbor. Which would mean Nois and Taam L'Fgam leheter would have to be so bad that you can't even give it to the neighbor. Which is not the same as a 24-hour-old pot, obviously. So how do you reconcile these two? Right? And that's to a large degree what undergirds a lot of the Siman here. Because it's a big distinction, and there's two ways of reconciling this problem. And both of them are mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. One seems from the way the Shulchan Aruch goes through is the primary, which is where I gleaned my original explanation of Nois and Taam L'Fgam. And then there's another way which the Shulchan Aruch adds as another view, Yesh Mishachaytach. Okay. Namely like this.
Military is an animal.
If the source is,
If we're talking about military then.
well, okay,
Any other
be careful there.
express-
Because the Rabbanon cannot be more makel than the Torah. If the Torah is saying it's considered lishvach until it's inedible, comes a chacham and say it's not inedible, it's only 24 hours old, it's still lifgam. Means the chacham would be more makel than the Torah, they can't do that. Which means the chacham must have an understanding that distinguishes between what we say about a keli and about yomayin and what we say about an avela, where when it comes to an avela, it has to be completely inedible to the point that you're not going to give it to your neighbor. And when it comes to that which is in your pot, as long as it's a little bit not edible, it's fine. Meaning it's only 24 hours old, it's already fine. How do the Chacham understand that distinction? Considering that the Gemara presents us with both. Following? You following what's happening?
But-
Sorry?
There's a contradiction in the
but
Gemara that has to be
completely inedible
clarified.
is-
by the
Correct.
Midoraisa.
The Rishonim have to clarify what the Chacham are thinking.
And completely inedible is midoraisa, and the other is midorabona. I mean,
Walk that through. Daraisa, something that is 24 hours old, is Lefgam or not? Based on what you're saying.
Within
24 hours?
No,
It would not be it would not be Lefgam,
Only
which means it would be Usser. The Chacham come and say, no, it is Lefgam and Mutter. The Chacham would be more makel than the Torah. It can't be the case.
stringent.
They're not being more stringent here. Because the Chacham, the Torah is saying it's Usser until such time that's completely inedible. And the Chacham are saying it's Mutter even before. It's mutter even after 24 hours when it's still edible, but it's a little bit not good. The Chacham are being more makel here because they're making L'Fgam happen faster. So that's the problem. How do we reconcile this? If the Chacham were being more machmer, okay, good. Torah says this, Chacham were more machmer. But here's the reverse. The Chacham being more makel. So how do you reconcile this? Because again, they both come from the Gemara. So in the Rishonim, right, the post-Gemara commentaries, obviously noting this, they discuss this. And it splits into two views. One, again, which I believe is the primary view, and it's really what we've based our entire understanding of Nois and Taam L'Fgam up till now, which is like this. We've learned, every time we've learned Nois and Taam L'Fgam until today, we always learned it with an egea to Tam Ke'ikr.
If he gives flavor.
Not when the Mamashis is there.
Even if the mamash.
No.
Not when the Mamashis is there.
You could be more lenient when it's just.
Up until now, every time we've interacted with Nois and Taam L'Fgam, it's always been only that which is absorbed in a keli. Right?
Flavor.
So it's flavor only. And we explained that because there's a principle, Tam Kicker, that the flavor is present, it's as if the thing itself is present. And therefore we said the only time the flavor present is going to be like the thing itself is there is if the flavor is faithful to the original. But that principle is only true when it's flavor.
24 hours, we're saying, like this answer only applies to Tom.
Only applies to flavor.
Can I?
But when it comes to the actual Iker, the thing itself is there. Now you have to apply the Nevela standard. It's going to be a usser until it's so inedible that you can't even give it to somebody else. And then, so if the mamoshis of the Isser is there, the L'Fgam has to be much worse. So now we're learning there's two levels of L'Fgam. If the mamoshis of Isser is there, it's got to be mamish L'Fgam like the Nevela, that you can't give it to the next door. But if it's just a flavor, now that we're more makel, it's just a flavor thing. So as long as the flavor isn't faithful to the original, because it's giving off a negative flavor, even though it's not so bad. But because it's not faithful to the original, we're going to say it's mutter. But that's only true when the mamoshis isn't there. Only when Tam is there. Clear?
There, it's only
L'Fgam,
only
if it's-
motor if it's inedible.
If it's inedible, then the L'Fgam has to be like Nevela, where it's mamish inedible.
Does the forbidden flavor have to come from food, or can it come from something
Okay, we're gonna get to that in a minute. We're gonna get to that. Very good point. We're gonna get to that in a second. Now that's another subject.
Whether it's the thing itself or something.
Let's get there. Yeah. Okay. So now, that's principle one that we're establishing. That's only one opinion. The other opinion, which the Gemara, which the Shulchan Aruch is going to mention, the opinion I just explained to you comes from the Rashba, which we have been learning like the Rashba the entire time. Every time I explained it based on this Rashba. Yeah. But the Ran was a little differently. He says like this. The reason why, when it comes to an Avela, the Torah says it's usher until such time that it's completely inedible, is because until such time that it's completely inedible, even though it's a negative flavor, at the end, the reality is the person can enjoy it. And therefore, we're going to be machmir. It is enjoyable. You can not enjoyable. You can derive benefit from it. Until such time that it is inedible, even if there's a little bit of a negative flavor, when you eat it, you derive benefit.
Until such time that it's inedible.
You derive benefit. It's still edible. So even if it's a negative flavor, you're deriving benefit.
Still edible. May not be.
You're deriving benefit from that.
But it's still edible.
Correct? You're deriving benefit. That's the way you just understand it. At the end, you're still being nana from the isser. You're still deriving benefit from the isser, even if it's somewhat sour. When it's inedible, then it's inedible. You're not deriving any benefit. So in other words, the Torah is saying, therefore, that the notes in Taam L'Fgam is measured by, are you benefiting from the isser?
Because is that the only issue, the benefit of the Isser?
So the Torah is limiting.
Not an Isser.
That's right. The Torah is limiting the prohibitions of eating foods to such a degree that you're having benefit from it. So in an avela, you have a piece of meat. It's a little bit off, but if you were to eat it, you would have benefit from it. Okay, that's awesome. When it comes to flavor, there's no mamashis there. It's just flavor.
Mamash means what again?
Actual substance, like mamash.
Mash.
Right? Mamashis is like the adverb of mamash. Right? I think it's the word. I think it's no. I don't know my English so well.
It's the mass.
The mamashis means like the substance. Yeah. So you have the substance itself. Sorry, when you have no substance itself, it's just flavor. Are you deriving benefit from that flavor by eating it?
No.
What benefit are you deriving?
If it's bad, you mean?
If you give a positive flavor, I'm deriving benefit. Usser. Just like the nevela is usser when you derive benefit, even though it's a little bit off. But when it's giving you a negative flavor, because I have no substance to say that I'm gaining, yeah, therefore it's going to be mutter. Because I'm not gaining anything from this flavor. Clear? This opinion is saying like this. The Torah is being consistent. In the first view, the Rashba's view, the Torah is giving two standards in Taam L'Fgam. When there's an actual piece of meat, the standard of Taam L'Fgam is that it's inedible completely. When it's just flavor, the standard is so long as it isn't faithful to the original flavor. Two standards of Taam L'Fgam. When you have mamoshes, when you have the thing itself, it's got to be inedible. When you have flavor, as long as it's not faithful to the original. That's the Rashba's way of understanding the difference between the two. The Ran's way of understanding the difference between the two is like this. It's actually one standard. The standard is, are you deriving benefit from the Isser? That's the one question. So if you have substance of Isser, and it's a little bit off, you're still deriving benefit, and therefore Isser. When you only have flavor, if it's a bit off, what benefit are you getting from this flavor there? If there's no mamoshes, it's just flavor coming out of a pot, and that flavor in the pot is a bit off. What benefit am I getting from that extra flavor? None. If there's mamoshes, if I have actual things of not kosher in the pot, then I did gain from the extra I did have benefit from that extra little bit off flavor because my soup is bigger. I can have volume. But if it's just flavor, then even by a little bit off, I have no benefit from the thing. So they're not applying one standard. Are you gaining from that Isser? Therefore, says the Ramah, therefore says the Shulchan Aruch, like this. Are we clear on this? We clear on this understanding?
There's two parts of this, unless Taam L'Fgam. One is whether there's an Avela, and one whether it's the flavor.
Correct.
Okay,
now 1 second. But why am I making a distinction between the two? So Ran said, because we have two different standards of Taam L'Fgam. When it comes to the actual substance, nevela, then you have to have Rashba, I'm sorry, it's completely inedible. And when it comes to flavor, so long as it's not faithful to the original, it's fine. Two standards.
The one allows and one forbids.
Yeah.
If it's a piece, then it's forbidden.
Then I have to wait until it's completely
What if
inedible.
it's what if there's 60 against it?
Oh, that's-
No, then there's bottle.
Nothing.
If it's bottle, it's bottle. They go with not bottle, right? So now, so the Rashba gives two different standards. One for the substance, where we say it has to be completely inedible, and one for the flavor, so long as it's a little bit off and it's not faithful to the original, because there's no substance there. Whereas the Ran is applying one standard. He says, are you gaining benefit from this Isser?
I want to. We use toothpaste that doesn't have a hechsher, as we say it's Taam L'Fgam.
It's also not something that
But-
you eat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You don't eat toothpaste.
but you have a benefit. He's explaining over here. And
There,
if you have a benefit, and you do have a benefit,
okay, it's a good question, but the end is it's not even edible, period. It's beyond edibility.
You can't-
okay, so what then?
Beyond edibility at all.
Okay, so why then say that the standard was whether it was?
It benefit by consumption.
Benefit or not?
Benefit by consumption. Unless it's an Isser, it's also no. Right.
It's probably not the rice, right?
Sorry?
It's probably no issue, the rice.
Correct.
No.
Well, let's say here's the Isa.
Yeah, right.
It's
Chicken and milk.
benefit by consumption. Benefit by consumption. For most Isorim, unless it's Basa B'Cholavim, which is benefit by any benefit, right? But most Isorim is only usher by benefit of consumption. So yes, good caveat.
We need the clarity.
That's important. Yes, that's important.
Because you do have a benefit and
Yeah.
and it's Taam L'Fgam. But you do have a benefit.
You can a person may have a artery from a pig.
Or
Lots of benefit.
Or gums.
What?
An artery from a pig.
Yeah.
Lots of hana from the pig.
But also the gums. People do.
Right? But there's no consumption there. You're not eating it. There's no isser. Anyways, okay. So now let's get to a din practicality that comes out of this. A din practicality comes out like this. In a situation where like this,
But I think that was trade. You could have other benefit from it.
That's my point.
That's what you said. You could have any other benefit.
right? I'm just giving a funny example. One person has an artery from the pig. People have it yet.
That's not, you're not eating it. What about if it's in your mouth? Like they take a grass of the pig and they put it into
In the gum.
for your
Oh,
gums.
interesting. I don't know. It's that shallow.
There's no taste from it. It's just the tissue, right?
Does that count as consumption or that's more like toothpaste? I don't know. That's a good
No,
question.
That's gonna be a whole different.
I don't know.
That's surgical.
I
That's
don't know.
for-
No. I don't know. Okay, so let's get to the Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch's practical thing out of this. What happens if the gain from that flavor, right, or the gain the gain because of the volume, because of the increased volume, outweighs the fact that there's a negative flavor
In other words, you still benefit.
on the whole. Even though this substance
Negative flavor.
is like you wouldn't eat it on its
No,
own.
wouldn't eat it on its own.
You wouldn't eat it on its own. It's
But it's one
way
part-
off.
It's 1 part in 10.
but it's 1 part in 10.
20, 1 part.
And now the added volume to my soup outweighs the negative flavor of that thing. Because I added 10% to my thing.
I got more soup to serve more.
So according to the Ran, that would be awesome. Because the barometer for the Ran is, are you having is there added benefit? Added consumptive benefit to your, because of the Isser. Even though the flavor might be completely off. Because the gain outweighs the loss. Whereas according to your first opinion, according to the Rashba, I'm sorry, that's not even available anymore. It's gone. It's not even available anymore. According to the Rashba, it doesn't count anymore. It's gone. According to the Rashba, it's gone. Once the available is inedible, it's a non-existent factor. And the Ran is saying, well, one second. It's only non-existent because you get no gain from it. In this case, you are getting gain. And the gain outweighs the loss of flavor. Aser. The Shulchan Aruch to bring that view as yesh mishachoitech. It's using unusual language. There are those who cut. That's the Shulchan Aruch is going to bring this view of the Ran. Shulchan Aruch is going to bring both views of the Rashba and the Ran. And the Acharon discuss which one we possibly like, and we'll save that for Wednesday night. Okay. I skipped the Sif Bays, but we take it back to Sif Aleph because it's built on this very similar principle, which is like this. We clear so far? Yeah. To summarize, we have two different views of how we understand Taam L'Fgam. With the permissibility of L'Fgam. View number one is, it's a question of, do I consider that thing to be valid Isser? And therefore, by Nevela, if there's substance, if it's inedible, it's not a valid Isser. And by flavor, as long as it's not faithful to the original, it's as long no, the first view, Rashba. If it's not faithful to the original, it's not considered around. According to the second view, it's not a question of whether or not it is constituted an Isser. It's always constitutes an Isser. It's a question of, am I gaining from that Isser? So it's two different questions about Taam L'Fgam. How I understand the permissibility of Taam L'Fgam. Opinion A, because I no longer treat this as an Isser, because it's so far gone. And therefore two standards, one for mamashis and one for flavor. Or Iran, which says it's a question of, am I gaining from this Isser? That's the one question to ask. Am I gaining from this Isser? And if when it's flavor, no substance, I'm not gaining because it's a negative flavor. By mamashis, it has to be so bad that I have no gain. But if it's so bad, but I still have gain, also. Okay, that's the summary of what we learned so far. Now this brings us to like Sif Aleph, which is another point, which is what you were saying, like this. There's two types of this in Taam L'Fgam. One is where the thing itself doesn't taste so good. The thing itself is spoiled. Or when it interacts with the other thing, it's spoiled.
Is it Nachmas Atzma? Is it from itself?
No, not because it absorbed. Amar's example is, and this is how we pass, obviously, because the Gemara gives that example, is if you have, let's say, vinegar, that's from Yayin Nesach, right? It's what's non-kosher vinegar. On its own, it's perfectly good vinegar, right? And then that vinegar got mixed onto gdisin, some kind of legumes. Now, vinegar is bad for legumes. Is the vinegar L'Fgam? Is the vinegar L'Fgam? Not at all. If I put it on my salad, it'll be great. But because I poured it on something else, it's considered L'Fgam. That's what Gemara passes.
It spoils that.
Because it spoils that thing. So not only if it's not L'Fgam, but if it's poigim b'taru vason, it's poigim in the thing that it mixes into, it's also L'Fgam and therefore has the heter. Clear? Okay. The exception to that rule is, as the Ramah points out, is when the thing itself is a beria or chatikar l'skabed. Why is that?
You said they're not bottle.
What? Oh, so why do I need? What's the difference? What did I just say before? If you have mamashas of Isser, and the mamashas itself is perfectly fine, like in the case of vinegar, I cannot apply Taam L'Fgam. The heter Taam L'Fgam. So I have to have bittul first. And if I have bittul first, then I can apply Taam L'Fgam to the flavor it gives off. Yeah? And therefore, by chatichar l'skabed or beria, where I have no bittul, even if the flavor I give off is negative, I can't say it's mutter. Because the thing itself is still there, and that thing itself is perfectly fine. It's not watered all the way. Only when it's a liquid like vinegar, where it spills into the beans. I can't extract that vinegar. Where is it? It's mixed into the whole thing. So all I have left is really flavor. Then I could say Taam L'Fgam because the flavor gives off is negative. This is according to Ran and Rashba. Doesn't matter which view I take. I have to have a bittul of the mamashis first before I can apply Taam L'Fgam to the flavor it gives off. And if I don't have a bittul of the original substance, because it's a very l'skabit, and I cannot apply Taam L'Fgam to its flavor. That's what Ramah adds. Clear on that? Is that clear or no? Right, we distinguish between the Taam L'Fgam of mamashis versus the Taam L'Fgam of flavor. Taam L'Fgam of mamashis has to be to such a degree that it's completely inedible.
Right.
However you understand it. Taam L'Fgam of flavor is even the tiniest amount. Okay. In the case of vinegar being poured on beans, the vinegar itself, mamashis, is not inedible. If I had it on my salad, it would be perfectly fine. So where's the Taam L'Fgam here?
Vinegar's not kosher.
It's yayin nesach in vinegar, so it's not kosher. Yeah? Right? Vinegar made from wine that was yayin nesach.
But then that's also to begin with.
Correct? But now it's mixed into my beans. And I can't extract it, it's gone.
Then it's also.
Why?
Because it's from grapes.
Okay, but what am I left with? I have no mamashis left. Mamashis is bottled already.
The product itself in its own
Correct.
independent way is usher.
Oh, so the mamashis itself is completely usher and it's not l'fgam.
Right.
Okay, but if it's bottle, like in the case of the little bit of vinegar that mixed into this mat, it's ratio of 1 to 50.
But
So the flavor is nullified, but the substance is nullified.
you can't nullify wine.
Why
Wine
not?
doesn't get nullified. If you have a drop of non-kosher wine that falls into a vat of kosher wine, the rest of the wine kosher.
Okay, you're right, because Yain Nesach is bottle, so I have to give a different
That
example.
example.
That example, I can't call the chametz also because of. Oh, you're right. So how would the
That's not-
how would the vinegar be usher here
That's
then?
the only kind of vinegar. Vinegar is not only wine vinegar.
No, in this case, he's.
Why would you giving that example? The Gemara just says, for example, chametz vinegar on.
Say
Okay,
vinegar, not wine vinegar.
okay, but why is the vinegar usher? I don't know.
I think
Why
you
is
apply,
it-
I think it's a level of stringency, but it's
Make
not
it
as
simple.
stringent. It becomes vinegar, I think it loses the iron. I think it, to some
It
extent.
is bottle, right? It is
It
bottle.
loses the status of the iron.
think so. I think you're right. You're right
That's when
about
it
that.
changes, when it
Okay,
changes.
but for putting that aside, the Gemara gives an example of chametz.
Wine that's not.
Okay. So put that aside. Good point. Let's just say it's chametz. The Gemara gives chametz, and the Gemara says chametz is vinegar that's usher. I assume the nesach. I should look it up, but let's just the vinegar is usher. Here's the main point. The vinegar is usher, right? It itself on its own is not l'fgam. Certainly not by the standard we just applied that it has to be completely inedible.
Because in some cases it could be good, and in
Because
some
it's
cases
totally
it could be
fine. No, because it itself is functioning as it's supposed to.
Right.
In my salad, it would be great. Okay. It's only l'fgam. Why? Because of the flavor it gives off. Because the flavor it gives off to this particular item, beans, is no good. Okay. So now the vinegar is in the beans of a ratio at 50 to 1. So the substance is bottled. So the l'fgam, or the lack of l'fgam of the substance is no issue anymore, because it itself is bottled. It's only a question of the flavor, because flavor has to be nullified by 60. And I don't have 60 against the flavor. But the flavor is negative. Clear? So you follow that? So the heter of the flavor being negative is only if the substance is bottled. Sorry? Say again?
50.
Do we eat the beans or we don't eat the beans?
So you would eat the beans. Why would you eat the beans? But let's understand this. The mamash is a substance. It's not l'fgam, but it's bottled. But the flavor it gives off is not bottled, but it's 1 in 50. But it is l'fgam because it ruins the beans. But because a berry and a chaticher l'skabed are not bottled. So even if the flavor is l'fgam, I'm sorry, but you weren't mevatel the original. And the nice in Taam L'Fgam has two standards, by how you explain the Ran or the Rashba, that the substance has to be bottled to the point of inedibility. And in this case, it is not inedible. It's only the flavor it's giving off that's negative.
Let's say.
So the nice in Taam L'Fgam of Tam can only be a mamashis is bottled. Right. Because a berry is not bottled. And a chaticha l'skab is not bottled. And Davar Sheba Minyan also, which we'll get to.
So we take out the barrier.
And now you have, if you can, and now you only have Tam and a Taam L'Fgam, and you're fine. Yes, but we're doing. That's why I want to say before Sephalov. So I want to distinguish and help us understand the difference between the bittul of mamashis versus the bittul. The l'fgam of mamashis versus the l'fgam of flavor, and to understand that you have to deal with both. You have to make sure either the mamashis is l'fgam, or better yet, the mamashis is gone or bottle, and then you could say the flavor is l'fgam. But if the mamashis isn't bottle, yeah, which leads to the next point.
What about the opposite case of something that is also to begin with becomes acceptable?
Because what?
Like the opposite case of your vinegar and beans.
Yeah.
Something that the vinegar
Yeah.
did not have right? Only when it was poured onto the beans.
Good question. That's what I want.
The opposite.
That's what I want to talk about right now. That's the next din. The next din that comes out of this. So in the case of vinegar and beans, the moment the vinegar interacts with the beans, it's negative. Its entire interaction with the beans are negative. But what happens in a situation where the interaction starts out positive and only becomes negative later? Or the reverse. It starts out negative and then become positive. then you cannot apply the standard of Taam L'Fgam.
You did the positive that becomes negative.
Both ways. Either way, says the Shulchan Aruch, yeah, that you cannot apply the leniency of Taam L'Fgam. If it started out negative and then it ended positive. What?
I said before you ate the beans.
Okay, forget beans, different case, some other case. The reason why the beans in that case is fine is because its entire interaction has always been negative. But what if you take a hypothetical in which the interaction, not vinegar and beans, some other hypothetical, where it started out,
Now you started to say both cases.
so I'm telling you it's both cases. If another hypothetical, not the vinegar and beans, some other hypothetical, in which the interaction starts out as positive and then deteriorates, or the other way around, it starts out as negative and then it gets better as time goes on, as it cooks longer. In either case, says the Shulchan Aruch, you cannot apply the standard of Taam L'Fgam. You cannot apply the leniency. Why? In the case where it starts out negative, while it's negative, you can apply Taam L'Fgam. But as soon as it becomes positive, how could you apply Taam L'Fgam? It's positive. That's what the Shach explains.
And since it's going to become positive, you can't even have it when it's negative.
Oh, the Shach says, while it's negative, you can.
Oh,
Yes. The kodim shishbiach mutter.
So why did you say both cases when we
Oh,
talked about?
Because I want to talk the other way around. If it starts out positive and then becomes negative, even when it's negative, you cannot apply Taam L'Fgam.
How come we can eat the beans?
Why? Because again, by the beans, its entire interaction was negative. The flavor that the vinegar gave to the beans was negative from beginning to end.
It didn't become negative.
It always was negative.
From the outset.
Correct. Its interaction with the beans was always negative, even though it itself would have been fine somewhere else.
Spoiling the beans.
Correct. It was always spoiling the beans. Whereas in another case where it starts out positive and then becomes negative, then you cannot apply the standard of Taam L'Fgam, even when it became negative. Why? Because when it was positive, it's like the mamashis of Isser from Vela.
Or the other way around.
The other way around, it started out as negative. So while it's negative, there's no reason to make it positive. There's no reason to ice it. When it becomes positive, now it becomes ulcer. But when it starts out positive and then becomes negative, I can't apply Taam L'Fgam anymore because while it was positive, it was nevela. And nevela requires a high level of L'Fgam. Yeah, that's what the Shulchan Aruch is going to say at the end of days. Okay. There are some other details that I want to get to, but one more.
Positive, it became negative.
Say again?
It's going to be prohibited. When it started off positive and it became negative,
It's going to remain prohibited. It's going to remain prohibited.
And even when it's negative.
Correct.
But if it started off negative,
Yes.
it's going to become positive. So long as it's negative, it's going to be permitted.
Correct. Until such time that it gets the positivity, now it's
Then it'll
problem.
be, no,
Okay.
of course.
So there are a few more. This is only Sif Aleph and Beis. There are two more principles that I think are important to discuss. I'm not going to have enough time to get into all the details, but when we learn the Shulchan Aruch, we will understand how they're applied. And I want to make note of them. The first is, even if the L'Fgam flavor requires help, it's still L'Fgam.
All right.
Help.
Help.
Yeah. So the flavor itself wouldn't cause negativity, but because there's some salt in there,
Right.
or if I had more salt, it would save the flavor. I don't have enough salt, or I have too little salt. And if I salted it properly, it would have been a negative flavor, or it would have been a positive flavor. That's an irrelevant factor. As the Shulchan Aruch is going to demonstrate for us, it doesn't matter because
It's a relevant factor.
it's an irrelevant factor because at the moment it's giving off a negative flavor.
Means
Say again?
which one's going to be permitted, which one's going to be prohibited.
In any case where at the moment it's giving negative flavor, whether it got help to get that flavor across, or if it required, or if it had the proper thing, it would have stymied the negative flavor. In either
But if
case.
it was positive, then by adding the salt, it became.
No.
negative.
Right now it's negative. But it's only negative because I didn't put enough salt. Or it's only negative because I put too much salt. It doesn't matter. So long as right now it's causing a negative flavor, even though had I cooked it correctly, it would have been a positive flavor, it doesn't matter. Because right now it's giving a negative flavor. Okay? That's going to be Gimel. Now, okay, there's going to be some details, other things, but here's one more important thing that I want to share that's going to help us understand the last part of Aleph, and then Vav, Hey, Vav, Zayin. Hey is going to be what we know already, because Hey is going to be about 24 hours. But there's two machlokes. There's a machlokes that we need to take into consideration. And that this machlokes is going to intersect with the question of Hanan. So principle number one is like this. Hanan will not happen. Are you clear with me? This is a very important principle because it's going to be foundation of quite a few sifrim here. Hanan will not happen unless it's positive flavor interacting. Let's explain. Let's just take the standard of where everybody agrees basar b'chalav is Hanan. Yeah. So you have a meat pot. Yeah. And it's not ben yoimai, so it's over 24 hours. And then milk is cooked in there. We're not going to say Hanan. Because in their interaction, they were L'Fgam. Correct. It's only Hanan.
Talking with the pot, you're talking with the milk.
The absorption or the milk. Let's just do more example. If you took a piece of meat the nevela was completely inedible, right? And you cooked it with milk, it wouldn't become Hanan.
So it'd still be prohibited.
But it wouldn't become Hanan.
It wouldn't be able to prohibit.
Because it's L'Fgam. It has to be in the interaction, it has to be positive in the interaction. Otherwise, it wouldn't become Hanan. Yeah.
So in this case, it wouldn't be aser because of basar b'chalav, it would be aser just because it's not kosher.
It wouldn't even, I don't even know if it would be usher then. I don't even know if it would be usher then. Right? But
it's not edible.
yeah, but let's do a case like this. Let's look like this. You have a meat pot, right? And then 12 hours later, you cook milk in it.
Oh, it is ben yoimai.
Yeah, it's ben yoimai. And now you have Isser. Yeah. Now,
Everything's no good.
sorry, everything's good. Now, 15 hours later, so it's within 24 hours of the mixture of milk and meat, but it's after 24 hours of the meat. (6:00 a.m. meat, 6 p.m. milk, the next day 8 a.m. water. So the water is 14 hours ago from the mixture of milk and meat, which is 6 p.m. last night, but it's over 24 hours since the meat, which was 6 a.m. yesterday. Now it's 8 a.m. It's 26 hours. Sorry?
But the milk became Hanan.
Oh, so there, the milk and meat became Hanan because they were positive together. Then it doesn't even matter, right? Because the Hanan happened
You need
under positive conditions.
You need 25 hours from the milk.
Oh, what happens if you have meat, 6 a.m. Yeah, 6 p.m. water. The next day, 8 a.m. milk.
Or not, no?
Oh, the Shachtaka learned not in that case.
Right?
Yeah, we once had that. But putting that aside, because others learn it differently, very good. But let's just imagine like that. So what happens now?
Shop's always very easy with that.
Yeah, well, not always, because sometimes he says you require 3 times. He said, yeah. So, but let's walk through this though. So you have the water
Now absorbs from the meat, but then it's Eino ben Yoma by the time it gets to the milk. So there's no transference of flavor.
No.
The water has to be thrown out though.
So, but if
Mayor,
sorry,
the question is when you're measuring.
hold on a second.
From the time of the water or the time of the meat?
The
That's
water
the question.
takes the status of the meat because it's within 24 hours. But then because it's after 24 hours, by the time they go to the milk, the water itself becomes forbidden. You have to throw out the water, but then the milk is fine. No?
The milk will be fine.
Right.
Why?
Because you have to throw out the water.
Either because of not by not,
Or because it's Eino ben
or because even though in the middle there was water.
Yeah, but what happens to that water by the time you get to the milk? Is the water still in the pot or did you?
No, you dumped it out.
So then the
Right.
milk is fine.
Milk is fine because the interaction between the milk and meat
Didn't happen directly,
was in a negative,
right?
even though in the middle there was water cooking.
But the water itself.
On the other hand, if you
The
have
water didn't reawaken flavor.
But
of
it
the
took
meat,
the flavor.
but what happens if you have milk and then 5 hours later meat? Now this pot is basar b'chalav
That meat and then flavor.
in the pot. Now the pot is bona fide basar b'chalav, and then 15 hours later, you cooked water in it.
You couldn't use.
How many hours later does it become Hanan?
24 hours.
Of what?
Of the meat and milk.
Why? Did the water not become Hanan?
But then the
By absorbing milk and meat?
There's no difference in status. The water changed nothing.
The water became
The
Hanan.
milk changed.
The water not become Hanan because it absorbed milk and meat? So,
from the pot. It's a positive flavor, if anything.
it's a positive flavor. It's within 24 hours of both the milk and the meat.
So what's the question? Sorry.
So you have milk and meat. It's a bona fide milk and meat flavor pot. And within 24 hours of both of that, you boiled water in that pot. How many hours later before that pot becomes less than Taam L'Fgam? That pot becomes less than Taam L'Fgam. From when?
From the time that the mixture happens.
What about did the water not become Hanan? When the water,
The water doesn't reinvigorate the flavor.
it's not about reinvigorating the flavor. It's about it itself becoming Gadavar Aser.
What's the difference between having that a piece of like a basar bachala piece of meat in the pot? You're saying it's the same thing with the water.
If the water becomes
Start again.
Hanan,
Start again.
if we're going to learn that the water becomes Hanan,
Start again.
Well,
24 hours to start again
In
then.
this case, the water only became fleshing.
But now he's saying.
But if you're not
basar
using
bachala
the
water.
water,
In this case, the water became Basar B'chalav.
The first case,
Right.
it became-
The water became Basar B'chalav.
but then you threw out the water.
Doesn't that, fine. So what is left in this absorption? The original milk and meat? Or what's left in the absorption of the wall is the water which became Basar B'chalav.
The water which became basar
So then you have to count 24 hours from the water.
from the water.
The water.
Yeah, that makes
Now that's a major stringency. Because that means, because what's Hanan in Basar B'chalav?
The water doesn't reinvigorate the forbidden mixture.
It's not about reinvigorating the flavor. It's about it itself becoming Gadavar Aser.
The water itself becomes.
It's because it itself is itself Basar B'chalav.
Okay.
Yeah. Now this is a major chumrah. Why is this a major chumrah? Because Basar B'chalav becomes Hanan. Why? Why does it become Basar B'chalav? Why is that the prototype Basar B'chalav? Why is that the prototype Hanan? It's the prototype Hanan because both of them on their own are kosher. They come together.
That's forbidden.
That's the forbidden, and if the whole thing is forbidden, Hanan. Okay, but now once this Basar B'chalav gives flavor to something else, that becomes Hanan.
It's kind of not quasi, not, you know.
Now it's the same thing as other Yisurim. We have Machlekes Ramah and Mechaber. The Hanan of Basar B'chalav was only when the two of them interact, not when they give something else. So that means the Hanan here of the water is not because of Basar B'chalav Kula Alma. It's only because of Shari Yisurim. Because we're machmir like the Ramah, which says by Shari Yisurim is Hanan also.
So let me.
That's a chumrah really.
Let me see if I understand. So the Shach says 24 hours from the basar b'chala, and the Ramah says.
Yeah, I didn't not mention the Shach yet, but I'm not mentioning it because I'm building up to the main point at the end. And we're almost there. Because the Shach does help us along this journey. But I'm getting there. So let's take it step by step. The milk and meat come together, they become Basar B'chalav.
Forbidden.
The Basar B'chalav, they become Hanan. That's the essence of Hanan. Two kosher things that in their mixture become prohibited. And now they are the entire substance of Isser. Now that they are the substance of Isser, and they give flavor to something else, does that other thing become Hanan? Why is it any different than something else absorbing the non-kosher fat?
Why not?
Part is Hanan.
Never mind, it's not apanat anymore. It's direct flavor. Let's just imagine it's direct flavor. A piece of milk and meat, a piece of meat that has absorbed milk. The whole thing is Hanan. A little bit of that meat juice goes into my coffee.
Oh.
My whole coffee is Hanan.
The pot is Hanan.
I get the pot.
We only talk about the pot.
I know, but I'm making a point here. Listen to the point we're making here. Again, a piece of meat absorbed milk. Hanan. Yes? Now, a little bit of that juice from that meat goes into my coffee. It's not bottled by shishin, so my coffee is aser because it has flavor of milk and meat in it. Is my coffee Hanan?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's a mixture of two.
It's not a mixture of two Isurim.
Sure.
It's not a mixture of two Heterim. It's an Isser that went into a mutter.
It's not a question of logic one way or the other. It's just that you extend
Oh.
in that way also.
But that's
Or not.
So the Ramah learns, and we learn that even by other Isurim we say Hanan. Forget milk and meat. Even if non-kosher fat fell to the coffee, I would say the whole coffee is Hanan. So therefore, the Hanan of the Basar B'chalav coming into this coffee is not because of Basar B'chalav. It's not relevant. The Basar B'chalav is not a relevant factor. It's only the fact that it's Shari Surim. Because it's non-kosher going into kosher substance.
Right.
The same thing is true about water. You have Basar B'chalav in the walls of the pot, and then it goes into boiling water. The water became Hanan. Only if you're Machmat Ramah.
Only according to Shah Yisur.
Only if you follow the Ramah that Shari Surim is also Hanan. and then have to wait 24 hours from that water. Massive chumrah.
What about
Clear?
kosherizing the pots? You have to wait 24 hours no matter what to kosher the pots.
Yeah, it wasn't enough water to kosherize the pot, and it wasn't hot enough to kosherize the pot, let's say.
But it also isn't within
It has
24
to
hours.
be very, very hot.
Right.
It was hot enough to absorb, which is much lower than the heat of koscherizing. Yeah. So now the water's iser is not an inherent iser. It's not a chanan iser. It's iser absorption of a chumrah of the Ramah, which applies to absorption, which applies chanan to absorption. It's a very strong chumrah. And then to say to wait 24 hours from that, and therefore we apply a different machlekes. There's a different machlekes b'chlal. How long does it take for L'Fgam? We once mentioned this. It's machlekes Rishonim. Is overnight how long it takes for L'Fgam? When we spoke about this once upon a time. It's machlekes of how long it takes for L'Fgam to happen. One opinion was overnight. Another opinion was 24 hours. 24 hours is a chumrah. So in this case, the Rambam is going to tell us 2 chumras equal a kula. You're machmir to say chanan by shari sorim, and if we wait 24 hours from the water,
Only if it's not.
and you're going to be machmir that you have to wait more than a night all the way to 24 hours. No. Next morning, you're fine already. Okay? So all these different scenarios are going to come up in Vav and Zayin, the intersection between chanan and L'Fgam, and it comes down to the principle of A. There's a machlekes how long L'Fgam takes. 24 hours or overnight. A. B. Chanan can only happen Chanan can only happen if the interaction is a positive one. If the interaction is a negative one, it doesn't become chanan. And number 3, is the thing absorbing the flavor even chanan? Or is it chanan like shari surim, in which case I'm already being machmir. Just by considering the absorption of chanan. Unlike milk and meat, we're not being machmir. That is chanan. But when something else is absorbing the iser, now I'm being very machmir. In which case I have more room to apply leniencies by tacking on other chumras, like the 24 hours versus overnight. Is that clear?
No, so what there's 2 chumras.
Yes, Chumrah A, I'm making you wait 24 hours to consider it negative. Chumrah B, I'm treating that water as if it's chanan.
Which chumra do you choose?
I choose the leniencies, and therefore,
Well, you don't choose any chumras.
well,
No, chumrah over chumrah.
no. So I go lenient within the chumras, and therefore I'm only machmer to wait the next morning and not 24 hours later. Right, that's going to be
So
in Vav.
Until the next morning, you follow both chumras.
Yeah, and therefore said that even moreover, if you
The Rabbanan, there's 2 chumras, and the whole thing is the Rabbanan, then it
and there's
becomes
and about machlekes to begin with, so right because there's machlekes by each one of them. So the will go even further. It's like this: if you have now following this logic, you cook meat at night, 4 in the afternoon. Sorry, 4 in the afternoon you cook meat. The next day, 6 a.m. you cooked milk. If you apply the standard of 24 hours, then it's nice and Taam L'Fgam. If I apply the standard of overnight, it's L'Fgam. Yeah? And then, right after that 6 a.m. milk, I dumped it out, boiled water. Do I have to count 24 hours now from the water? I'd have to apply 2 chumras to do that. A, I'd have to apply the chumrah that it's actually L'Fgam because you need 24 hours. And B, I have to apply the chumrah that the water is chanan. Not going to go so far. And therefore, you only have to wait 24 hours from the mixture of milk and meat, not from the water.
So the onion would change all of that and say that.
Yes, I forgot to mention that because it's one of the things that come up here that we learned already once, that sharp things reinvigorate flavor. That's going to come up as well. Yes, I forgot to mention that's one of the sifim here, which we spoke about in our little chat. That sharp things reinvigorate negative flavor. Yes, that's going to come up here as well.
So
Okay.
how long does the onion reinvigorate for? Like from how long?
I have not seen a cap.
Okay.
And remember, it's not substance, it's only flavor. The definition of negative flavor and positive flavor is so difficult to define, at least scientifically in some way. So we're taking the Chachamim's standards, and their standards are spice sharp has the ability to reinvigorate flavor even when it's negative. Correct.
So what if you cook the onion and you like sauteed it, you took out the spiciness?
We spoke about that when we learned the halachas of davar charuf. We learned that onions are only davar charuf until such time as they're sauteed.
Okay.
In the case that we posted in the group, they were not sauteed, they're cutting at the moment of cutting. It became sauteed later, but at the time of cutting, they were not sauteed, right? Okay, so sorry?
That was pretty straightforward. Stuff discussed over there, Jim.
Yeah, okay, read through it. It's just a schmuck, a fun thing to do. Sorry?
It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, as Hashem will give, hopefully we'll
I have a practical question.
present more such practicalities in the group.
It happened to me
It's fun.
yesterday, so that's why I wanted to know what the answer was, because I was looking at it and I was like, what do I do now? So my son took toast and put some toast, and then there was butter, which he used a knife, put some butter on the toast. And then even though he wiped the knife very well on the toast, he then used that knife to put it in a glass jar of jam.
Okay,
I saw the look, so now I think I understand so now what's the status of the jar?
okay, so in that case, there's a shalom b'chal sakina. Is that considered pressing of the knife because the jam is too soft?
Jam soft and the butter was
Spoke
soft.
about that once.
You're saying there's no mamashas in the jam?
There,
Well,
hold on a second.
He
Now, to
said-
say-
he said he didn't wash it.
To say exactly.
He said
Okay,
he
That's
that's
why-
why
what's-
I'm saying wash it
Now's the
out.
next point.
wiped it off.
Wiped it
So-
off.
Wiped it off. There's.
Not much is.
So they say, so we learned
Butter and it went into.
that's what they say. So first of all, we learned way back when we learned from the Pesachim Chuvas from our book about halacha l'maisa, who he argues that even spoons and forks could be considered the sakin. Remember that he said even forks and spoon, right? But more importantly here, the way you describe him wiping is wiping it on the toast. To say that on the toast you got off all the butter,
No,
Hard to imagine
100%.
it.
There was a residue on the knife that now went inside the jar.
the jam is unless
Well, your milk
Can you
jam.
scoop out the part where the knife touched?
yes you can.
That was the
That's the
question
point.
that I
Yes,
had.
if you can cut around the area where the knife touched, and the mamashas is gone.
Right.
You can't, however, in theory, if you only found that after the whole thing was mixed
And by the
together.
way, it's for sure 60. There's for
But
sure
60
60 of the jam against
It
the.
definitely is.
Right.
That would only work if it's mixed.
Not on
It's
that
not
part
mixed.
where
It's
they're-
only on the top.
So if you
It's not
could,
mixed.
if you could
It's only-
scoop out the whole layer.
area where the
And the
knife
top layer,
touched
if
the
it's,
jam.
if it's
No, I'm saying it didn't go, it went inside or it just, it went.
Oh,
you know,
can you
put it on-
mix the jam? Can you, because you're not applying an isser, it's heter, but it's dairy.
I thought you
Oh, that's a
said-
good point. That's a good
it's
catch.
only butter, it's not isser.
I'm saying
Isser, can you
no, I
move
thought
that?
You hear Elliot's
Put it
Shiloh?
on the
No,
jam.
no, no.
Just
Well,
say-
Elliot makes a good point.
What?
So make your point, go
Can
make
you,
your point.
can you move out all the dairy, right? Can you, because if you want to see, if you mix it,
No,
then
you
it would
can't
be,
do that.
can you?
It's not
Isser.
It's not isser, but
It's just milk it. You're not being vatal isser.
No, but you can't do it on purpose.
Why
No,
not?
it's not.
You're being vatal isser here? What's
Jam
isser?
is perfectly.
What's isser here? It's a question of milk like or not. It's not a question of
Like, I'm
isser.
never gonna eat the jam with the steak, you know what I mean? Also, like, it's strawberry
You
jam.
want a part.
Right, but if you want a power of jam.
Right,
So,
right.
but Elliot making a good point. There's nothing about isser if you mix it all up. The
Don't-
question is if
Don't
it's
mix it up with that knife though.
That's it's also but the counter argument to that is that on a practical level, it's hard to imagine you can mix jam at such a level. Jam is
That's
too
fair. That's fair. Maybe that's true.
It's not liquid
hard,
enough.
It's hard
Well,
to.
fatty substance.
you have to, like,
as
take
opposed
it
to a
out and-
sugary
I
substance.
don't know, the jam.
So the
Right.
butter itself does not
is
blend in with the jam. It kind of stays
right.
separate.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's fatty, right?
Even if you mix it all together, you would still be able to, if you took the whole jam and you spread it out on a plate, you still be able to find what butter is.
Maybe you'd be able to see like little white
I don't know
spots or
about
whatever.
You don't know about
But
that?
it would for sure be butter.
Do a scientific experiment. Anyway, the easiest thing you can do is to scrape off the area with a knife.
Yeah, that's
And then-
what I did, and I wasn't. That's why I asked the question.
Very good.
I wasn't 100% sure
Very
if
good.
that was the right.
Okay, good luck, everybody.
But